One of the ways to put all of these ideas together that's actually very exciting that's happened in the past few years is an idea called conscious capitalism. Conscious capitalism is the idea, main idea of two people, John Mackey, who's the CEO of Whole Foods, and Rai Sisodia, who's an academic at a business school. And they've written this book called Conscious Capitalism, which is, again, on the suggested reading list for you. Listen to John Mackey talk about what conscious capitalism is in an interview I did with him. So you've been the author recently of a new story about business that you call Conscious Capitalism. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little about how you see conscious capitalism growing and evolving, and what you really mean by that.
Well, of course, capitalism is a way of organizing economic relationships. It's a theory about that. And conscious capitalism, at the essence, is becoming more conscious of those processes so that they're not merely happening automatically through merely the invisible hand, but we become more conscious of how this all works, the greater system of how it all works. And we have identified certain key principles, of which right now I think there are 4 that make up what conscious capitalism is. And first, for the economic system, it's the simple things like freedom of contract, freedom of exchange, the rule of law, and property rights. The 4 basic principles. They've always been part of capitalism, but we're making that more conscious. And then the conscious business, which exists within the conscious capitalistic economy, has 4 key principles to that, which are deeper purpose. Business has a purpose besides maximizing profits.
And it can be a whole, doesn't have to be one particular purpose. There's a whole...
There's probably as many different purposes as there are businesses and entrepreneurs. They can get grouped into big categories, but each of them in some ways is also unique. Secondly is the stakeholder, what we call the stakeholder model, that you have these major stakeholders who are interdependent on one another. And so the purpose, the leadership's job is to manage the business in such a way as to create value simultaneously for all of these interdependent stakeholders. That also has the happy result of also maximizing long-term profits as well. It's a better strategy for doing so. But it recognizes that all of these major stakeholders are completely interdependent on one another. You cannot optimize one without optimizing other ones.
But that means you can't look at it as making trade-offs among them. Because lots of people will say, yes, great, you've got these stakeholders, but the manager's job is to make trade-offs among them.
Exactly. It's thinking about it in a different way. I always say if you look for trade-offs, you can find them. But if you look for synergies, you can find those as well. So in the conscious business, you're looking for the synergies. You're looking for the win-win-win strategies that will create value for all of the stakeholders. And it's in my opinion, wrong thinking to believe that the zero-sum game is that one benefits another one must lose, is the very thing capitalism sort of proves doesn't have to be the case. That when you're creating value for interdependent stakeholders, no one has to be losing. Even competitors don't necessarily have to lose if you view the competitive interactions correctly, which is your competitors are actually your allies in helping you improve, to helping you get better. They challenge you to move out of your complacency. So it's not a zero-sum game. It's a positive-sum game where all these stakeholders are simultaneously winning. And the other couple of principles that I want to outline in terms of the conscious business are, the third key principle is what we call conscious leadership. And so that the management's job is not primarily self-interested. And too many businesses, leadership today tries to take as much out of the business as possible. It's one of the reasons corporations aren't trusted that well. You have greedy executives who are basically have a view that they want to get as much out of the business as possible. Whereas in the conscious business, the leadership, in a sense, is serving the mission or purpose of the business, serving the stakeholders, and is a good steward of the resources that have been entrusted to them by the shareholders and investors. And the fourth principle is you can't have a conscious business unless you create conscious culture. The strategies, the processes, and the structures that compose the culture have to be consciously created in such a way that they allow the enterprise to fulfill its purpose and to create value for all these interdependent stakeholders.
So there are four key principles here that John talks about, and in a way purpose has to come first. Purpose greater than profits, multi-stakeholders without trade-offs, conscious leadership, and conscious culture. It turns out there are lots of conscious businesses these days. If you go to a website called consciouscapitalism.org, you'll find a lot more information about this. And let me have full disclosure here. I'm a board member of this organization, and I believe in what conscious capitalism is trying to do as a way of bringing new models of business in society. And there are companies involved, everything from Whole Foods and the Container Store, who you'll hear a little more from later, to POSCO, which is a very interesting integrated Korean steel manufacturer. As businesses become more aware of their effects in society, they can consciously create more value for their stakeholders. Let's listen to Chief Executive Kip Tyndall of the Container Store talk about how this works when he started the Container Store. How did you come with the idea of the Container Store? How did it get started?
Well, it was really sort of an evolution in our case. It wasn't so much of a light bulb going off as we thought we might do furniture, but then furniture is kind of boring. There's no traffic in a retail furniture store. We thought we might want to do food. This was before fabulous grocery stores like Whole Foods, and there was nothing like that back in 1978. We wound up doing sort of function, storage and organization, containers. Everything saves you space, it saves you time. There's a certain Zen quality to being well organized. If you're well organized, you can get a lot more done in life. You can get half the things you want to get done in life if you're reasonably well organized. So we spent 2 years developing the concept, developing the products. We fell in love with the products, and finally it was like, yeah, it's the Container Store. It saves you space, it saves you time. People had addressed that for businesses. Businesses were interested in saving space and saving time, but nobody had ever done that for consumers or individuals. So if you wanted to organize your pantry or your closet or your kids' toy storage, you'd have to go to 50 different stores to find the goods to do that. And I don't know, we got excited about shoe boxes and started with $35,000 in one tiny little 1,600 square foot store. That's all, there weren't any products. The products were commercial and industrial in nature. There was Gray Line and Rubbermaid, and that was about it. And so that, and now the stores are like 25,000 square feet, and it's a big category within the housewares industry. So,
a lot of people think that entrepreneurs start businesses because they're obsessed with profits and making money. Was that really the motivating force behind the Container Store when you started it?
No, I really love retail. I think retail is the greatest profession. I just can't imagine doing anything else. You've got all the creative aspects of it with the product, and then it's so people oriented. With the service and everything. So it's more of a medium, well, we spent 2 years without pay. Developing the
so
concept.
So it couldn't have been the money.
Yeah, we're just trying to get it right, And then we, play the violin. We paid ourselves $700 a month for a few years, and then $1,000 a month for a few years. So we were very interested in, with all due modesty, we were trying to create the perfect retail store.
Yeah.
And getting the products developed. As you get bigger, you can design the products. You can fill the holes in the marketplace. It took us 10 years to find the exact correct, actually Japanese manufacturer to produce the world's most perfect shoe boxes and sweater boxes, and we got so excited, and they fit into our Alpha drawers, and they stacked, and they were completely transparent, and you could stand on them. They were so strong, and to get big enough to be able to afford to do the molds for that, it's like the world has the perfect shoe box now.
Kip had passion for retail. He started the Container Store. He didn't have this big idea of conscious capitalism. He just understood that he needed to treat people the right way, to have some purpose, and to build the systems, etc., that went along with that. That's the idea behind conscious capitalism. We'll talk about this a little bit more in the next videos. But I want you to think about, how can the principles of conscious capitalism be applied in the organizations that you're familiar with? What might be some of the strengths and weaknesses?